Hey Bible lovers, I'm Tim Nichols, and I'm here to bring you your Nichols Worth. And today from Crossway, we have the ESV Everyday Gospel Bible by Paul David Tripp. Now I'm going to admit I don't know a whole lot about Paul David Tripp. I really hadn't heard of him until this Bible came out, so I decided to go ahead and take a look at it. And come to find out, he's written several devotions, several books. He's actually a pastor, and he also has an everyday gospel devotional. So I'm going to assume this is kind of a merging together of this concept, but let's go ahead and take a look. This is the hardback version. They do have several options to include a leather option and several true tone options. This one has a dust jacket. I don't like dust jackets, so I always like to show you what the Bible looks like without the dust jacket, and not bad. I'm probably going to leave the dust jacket on this one. I do like the fact that they put Everyday Gospel Bible on its side, so you can lay the Bible on its side as God intended. And of course it has the Crossway logo, ESV. On the front it has that same little logo. I'm not sure the significance of this logo, but as you can see on the dust jacket, very colorful, very nice. So let's go ahead and dive into the Bible itself. Number one, it does have two single-sided satin ribbons. The way you can tell if a ribbon is single-sided is if it's shiny on one side and dull on the other, then that's single-sided. If it's shiny on both sides, then you have a double-sided satin ribbon. Because it's a hardback, they're going to go with ribbons that aren't as nice as some of the others, but actually I don't like any of Crossway's ribbons. They use these little dinky 1/8 inch satin ribbons. I just don't like any of them, even on their heirlooms, but let's go ahead and take a look at the inside. Pretty basic paper liner, does seem to be reinforced, and then it has some introductory material. Now this one has something odd going on here. It has several of these cardstock shiny pages. I'm not exactly sure what their purpose is before you get into the presentation page. Of course, you're going to have the full text of the ESV. A couple of things I really like about this. Number one is it gives you a little letter from Paul David Tripp, kind of introducing his experience in making this Bible and when it was completed in January of 2024. So this is an early release for this year. It's a relatively new Bible. And then you get into your preface of the ESV. I always recommend that you read your prefaces because that gives you kind of the translation philosophy, the purpose behind the translation, how they handle the divine name, all that good stuff. Now, some features I really love about this Bible. Number one is it comes with really nice little book introductions. And these book introductions are written by Paul David Tripp. They give you some of the basic information. It also gives you a little timeline to let you know where you are in the timeline of creation and in God's plan. But then they also welcome you to the story of Jesus and how Jesus ties into the entire Bible. I always love it when a Bible shows how Jesus didn't just show up in Matthew chapter 1. He shows up in Genesis chapter 1, and he's throughout the entire Bible. So whenever I see a theme like that, I always really appreciate it. And then once you get into the Bible itself, you're going to have your first day of reading. This is a 2-column layout in a 9-point font, very similar to like an Omega layout. I love this lexicon font, very easy to read. The textual footnotes on the bottom, so some of those are going to be there. And then occasionally it'll have a little sidebar. And these sidebars will just give you a little bit of insight from Paul David Tripp. And then there's an index, which I'll show you, that shows you what excerpts these are from. Really cool stuff. Also, ESV is going to have your poetic settings, really nice. But once you get to the end of a day, you're going to have a nice little devotional that reflects on that particular day of reading. So it's going to have some insights from Paul David Tripp, and then whatever particular verse or verses that he's highlighting in this, that will be italicized in a little bit smaller of a font, and then gives you further reading options just in case you want to dive deeper into this particular topic. The thing I really like about this is that it is in Genesis to Revelation order. A lot of times when you have devotional Bibles, you're going to be scattered all over the place. They're going to give you some old, some new, some Psalms, some Proverbs. So it's really not useful in a congregational setting. This Bible is not only useful devotionally, but it's useful in a congregational setting. This is one you can take to church. This is one you can use as your everyday reader because it has your traditional standard format. One thing I don't like about this is the gold accents, because this paper seems a little thin, and you can see it's ghosty when it gets to the devotions. That gold lettering there is a little bit difficult to see because it's so light. Now the print itself of the Bible, it's really nice and dark, very readable. The letting space, the layout, it's just beautiful. Everything about this is just really nice. The verses are nice and bold, so you can see your verse numbers in this paragraph format, other than the poetic settings. The poetic settings are going to be in verse by verse, poetic format. So just really nice layout overall. The sidebars are a really nice touch, but again, that gold with this paper, I wish they would have used a thicker or a more opaque paper with this gold because it just kind of washes out. Now, when it's more bold like these, you can read it pretty good, but when you get to the end of your devotional, that's a little bit difficult to see, especially in certain lightings. I also really like that they have the gold accents in the chapter numbers, the gold accents on the page headers. I wish they would have went ahead and went gold on the subtitles as well, just because that would have looked nice. But once you get into the New Testament, again, day by day, there are 365 total devotionals. There's a good look at the poetic settings. You can see in the book of Isaiah. Really nice. And again, each has their own book introductions. And then once you get to the New Testament, as with most ESVs, the words of Christ are going to be in black. There are a couple of red letter ESVs. The classic reference comes to mind. Then we also have the ESV wide margin that comes to mind. And their red letters are extremely dark and nice. So now let's get to some features in the back, because this is really cool. So we get past the book of Revelation. There is no concordance in this, but they make up for it with 12 articles. And all of these articles are sourced from some of Paul David Tripp's books and devotionals and things like that. What's really interesting is they decided to go ahead and make the articles also double column in that 9-point font. And something I noticed is the layout is a little bit funky once you get to the articles. You see that space up here, but there's no space at the bottom. That just looks a little odd to me. I wish they would have shifted that up. But I do like that the subtitles are gold like they should have done in the Bible. That's something I wish they would have done in the Bible, just to kind of keep that really nice gold accent. So the 12 articles are God's plan for us, finding the right identity in your work. I think that's really important when you work, making sure that you're working for the Lord. Sexual freedom through purity, and all this is going to be from an evangelical conservative perspective, so you're not going to get any of that weird stuff. And then gracious marriage in a fallen world. So this is really good practical stuff. Merciful parenting under a merciful God. That is parenting. If you got any kids, you know that can be difficult. Cultivating humility in the face of achievement. So when you have victories, how can you still make sure that you're humble and not some big boaster? And then true friendship amidst true struggle. So some really practical, seeing suffering. Really practical stuff in here. The believer's promise, and then it has some reading plans, tables of weights and measures. And this is where I think this Bible is the most useful. Is number one, it gives you the index of the sidebars, their topic, and the title of each one. And then it gives you the sidebar bibliography. So it lets you know where they come from and Paul David Tripp's work. It has the colophon in it that lets you know all the people that are involved in this. And then, of course, you have, in the end, your Crossway maps. So really cool stuff. I want to show you one more thing. Let's go through the table of contents, because there's some important information in there as well. It lets you know what page each of the articles is on, so that you can find those articles without having to root through the back. You can go ahead and get a quick overview of the title. I think that's really cool. And then it indexes all the sidebars, and of course you have your devotional. This is really cool. And I think this is a useful resource for anyone that wants to really understand the gospel in a daily context and how Jesus is in the entire Bible. So this is an excellent option for you if that's something you're looking for. God bless you. Keep calm. Jesus on. This is your Nicholsworth.